You are watching or listening to the Good Morning Gwinnet show, hosted by Audrey Bell-Kearney, bringing you your daily dose of business and technology to educate, empower, and inspire small business owners. Be sure to subscribe to the show today.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, all my Gwinnetians out there in Gwinnett land and all of my friends around the world. It's a beautiful day here in Gwinnett County. Right now, it's about 60 degrees, going up to a high of 77. So, yes, it is November, and yes, it's going to be 77 degrees today here in Georgia, which is why I love it here so much. But anyway, I hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your day. Today is hump day. If you have made it to the MIDDLE, the middle, it's almost a weekend. You got 2 more days on the wake up, and you'll be right there. My mom used to say that all the time. When she first said that to me, I was like, where you get that from? So she used to work at the youth house in Newark. And that's what the kids would say. When it was time for them to go home from being in detention, they would say, Miss Bell, Mama, they called her Mama Bell. Mama Bell, I got 1 more day in a wake up. So you got 2 more days and it'll be the weekend. So anyway, got a great show for you today. Listen, one of the things I love about this platform is that I get a chance to interview some amazing people who share amazing wisdom and knowledge with you guys. And I want you to pay close attention to this interview because um, we want to make sure that you're educated about who people are, what they do, why this is important to you, why this is important to our community. And so I got a great guest today. She is an attorney in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, but she's also running for a Superior Court judge here in Gwinnett County. So this is exciting because she and I had a great conversation. And I always tell all politicians this. I was like, if I were to ever run for any office, I would lead with education. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people don't know what they don't know until it's too late. And we can see that every day, all day, and twice on Sundays with what's going on here in the United States. So without further ado, I want to welcome Miss Ramona Toole to the stage, and she's going to give us a little bit about who she are, and then I'm going to jump into the interview because she's busy. She still has to uphold the law and do her work, so I won't keep her long. But I promise you, this is going to be a great interview. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. I love to be able to use this platform for good. This is what, when I started Good Morning Gwinnett, I was going to go into politics. After spending about 6 months in politics, I was like, no, thank you, I'll pass. And I decided to do what I do now, which is Good Morning Gwinnett, which is shine the spotlight on the best and brightest in Gwinnett County and share people from around the world with our county. So I'm happy about that because I have all kinds of people here. But anyway, thank you so much. Tell us a little bit about your background, and then I got a lot of questions. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself first, and then I'll jump into my questions.
Okay. So I am Ramona Toole. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama, where I'm the oldest of my mom's 3 kids. I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy from Berea College, Berea, Kentucky. I have an MBA from Alabama A&M, and I got my law degree from Mississippi College School of Law in Jackson, Mississippi. I have been an attorney in Georgia for over 21 years, and currently I am a deputy district attorney in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. In addition to my role as a supervisor, the 2 things I'm most passionate about is the fact that I run a expungement clinic across Fulton County. It's called Record Restriction, and I'm very proud of that. Going around the community, telling people, "Hey, check your check your criminal history because things don't fall off like they do on a credit report." And then the other thing that I'm very proud of is under the direction of Madam D.A. Willis, is I created with my team a diversion program that gives low risk, low need individuals an opportunity to come into the program, complete it, and then also get the case dismissed and restricted or expunged. And so those 2 things are my daily pride and joy.
Okay. So listen, I'm gonna jump right on in. Thank you for all the work that you do. I'm really happy to have you here. I've had judges on here before. I've had judge candidates on here before, and a lot of time it's a lot of campaign talk. But I was like, not this time. I don't want to do a lot of campaign talk. I really want our community to understand like what that role really means and how that affects them in the community in their everyday living. So and it's funny because sometimes people call me tough. Sometimes people are afraid to come on the show, but it's not. I don't try to be tough. I just want to be open and honest, and I want to be transparent so they understand what's happening. So, for everyday residents who probably never set foot inside of a courtroom, like I did the Gwinnett Citizens Academy 101. So I did a mock trial. I'm trying to think, have I ever been inside of of a courtroom outside of that? Probably not. So for those people who never set foot in a courtroom, what decision does a superior court judge actually make that's going to affect their safety and the safety of the community and their families, so they understand that?
So with the with the Superior Court judge in Gwinnett, they have exclusive jurisdiction over family. So that's going to be your divorces, your adoption, your custody cases. They have exclusive jurisdiction over that. They do hear property crime, civil actions that related to land and property. So they do have civil matters. And then they also have criminal matters. And the majority of that, of course, is going to be felonies. And felonies are those crimes that are punishable for a year or more. Now, as it relates to public safety, then you look at what a judge does in the criminal arena. And in the criminal arena, they determine who gets a bond, who does not get a bond, based on whether or not they meet the 4 factors that the law talks about, the item factors. And then if they do get a bond, what is that bond? And then they have to take in consideration the nature of the offense, the criminal history, whether or not they're released to the community. They also are responsible for sentencing. As a prosecutor, I can make a recommendation to a judge. I think this person should be sentenced this way, and so can a defense attorney. But it's ultimately the judge's decision to decide what sentence to give someone. So those are some of the things that deals with the public safety when they're dealing with those criminal matters.
Now that you mentioned that, I do remember going into a courtroom. I actually went into a courtroom with my daughter, who was there on a paternity matter, and I found that to be very interesting. And so, can you talk a little bit about, and maybe you can talk about this, because this was new to me. I had never heard this before. So I was born in Georgia, but I was raised in Jersey, and I did not know that if you had a child with someone else, you have to declare that child, even though it's your child, your name is on the birth certificate. And I'm sitting in the courtroom like, what? Because I never heard that before. So speak a little bit about that, because I feel like that is something that's totally misunderstood, especially when you come from a place that don't do that. Like, that was nothing I ever had to do. I had never heard of that. So there are young mothers out there and young fathers who really think they have some rights and they really don't. Can you speak a little bit about that?
I can. So I used to do child support when I was an earlier attorney. And so a lot of people, like you said, they believe if they're not in a marriage, they believe if I have a child with John and John comes and puts his name on the birth certificate, that's all. And it's not in the state of Georgia. If you are married, then the child that mother has is deemed to be the child of the father. But if you're not married and you have a child outside of wedlock, that child, the father has to go through the process of legitimizing that child. Sometimes if it is contested, for instance, when I did child support, we would do a DNA and then we would go and take it to court and then get the court to deem that child to be the child of that father's. So it's an additional step. People think, okay, I'm going to sign this birth certificate and that's enough. No, you're the biological father, but you're not the legal father. And the reason why that's important is that when you think of, not to go to the worst case scenario, but when you think of death without, for instance, a will, that child would not be able to be considered a part of that estate because you never legitimized that child. If you think about Social Security benefits, you need to legitimize that child as a father. So it's very important. And then, of course, even if you're not married, then of course you all can determine, child support if that's a part of, if you want to determine custody. But custody and child support are not even on the table if that child has not been legitimized by the father. And it's a quick process. It's not very difficult. If the father's contesting that that's not my child, obviously DNA, and then you can go through that process. But, I hear it all the time, like, that's my child. But it's not unless you legitimize that child in the state of Georgia through the courts.
I had never heard that before. I was sitting in the courtroom like, what in the what? So that was pretty interesting. So now you talked a little bit about record restrictions. I know that's one of your babies. And you worked in public safety with second chances and diversion and record restrictions program. What does the community often misunderstand about what that process looked like and why that's important and how they work together, like the rehabilitation and the accountability, how those two work together when you go through that process?
So it was funny. Before, I was all about put them in jail, put them in jail. And then I got into record restriction and I started going out in the public and meeting people and hearing their stories. And every record restriction event I have, I'm gonna be in tears. What people don't understand, I had an older gentleman come into my office. He had a 1971 open arrest. It never had any disposition. And so he was about to be without a home. And so he was trying to get into a senior citizen living facility, and that open arrest was keeping him. And I remember when he came in, I didn't understand. I said, "Why are you trying to fix this now?" And when he told me that, this is the difference between him having a place to lay his head and being on the street. So I want people to understand how significant and important this is. That if you have ever been arrested and there's no disposition and the statute of limitation has passed, whether that's 2 years on a misdemeanor or 4 years on a felony, or you pled guilty pursuant to the First Offender Act and you successfully completed it, or you pled guilty pursuant to the Drug First Offender Act and you successfully completed it, or you did a diversion program such as the one that I run, or the case was flat out dismissed, or you were found not guilty. You can legally have those arrests restricted. Now, when I say restricted, a lot of people know the word expungement, but the thing with Georgia, it's never been a true expungement state. Meaning, when you think expungement, you think taking that eraser and erasing that off the history, and nobody ever knows. In Georgia, we restrict it from viewing from anyone outside of the criminal justice family, which means as a prosecutor, I will always have access to it. The police will always have access to it. The judges, certain licensing boards will always have access to it. So if you wanted to work with children, with people with mental health issues, and with the elderly, they will have access to it. But if you wanted to go get a job at AT&T, if you wanted to get an apartment, if you wanted to go to school and get grants and scholarships, it should be restricted from viewing from those individuals. So what does that mean? They can go to school, they can get jobs, they can open businesses. It frees them to have a second chance if they're legally entitled to it. So people sometimes say, well, you're just out here, expunging everybody's history. No, I'm legally expunging histories that the law allows me to do it. And I'm giving people a second chance. If you have a case like the elderly guy with the 1971 arrest, for whatever reason, the state didn't prosecute those charges. Clearly, the statute of limitation has ran, and it was the only arrest he had ever been arrested his entire life. It should be restricted so that he can continue to live out the rest of his days in a safe, clean environment. And so I just really want people to know, please don't think of this as a credit report that in 7 years or 15 years, it's just going to drop off. It's not. You have to take an active stand of pulling your criminal history from the sheriff or the police department, reviewing it, and then contacting the agency, the prosecuting agency, if you believe that arrest is incorrect.
Is there a certain amount of time that you have to leave something on your record before it can be restricted? Let's say somebody did a felony, they did their time, they get out, now they're trying to start over, and that's still sitting there. Let's say they did 3 years in prison, locked up. Now they're out, they want to start over. Do they have to wait a certain amount of time before that can be restricted, or can they come out and say, "I've done my time, let me get this restriction"?
So if they took a plea pursuant to the First Offender Act and they successfully complete it, and then they get that order of discharge, as soon as they get that order of discharge, they're eligible to have their record restricted. But let's say they plead guilty without the benefit of first offender, then they'll have to go through the pardon phase. And that's when you apply for the pardons and parole through the state of Georgia. And then you have to be, I believe it's 5 years from your last conviction and your last arrest that you're eligible to apply for a pardon. And if you're granted that pardon, then you're eligible to have that case restricted based on the pardon. So it comes out to a question of, did you plead pursuant to the First Offender Act, or did you plead guilty without the benefit of first offender, and now you have to go the pardon route? Now, the other thing that I want people to know, like back in the day, unfortunately, the prosecutors and the judges and maybe even the defense attorneys were not telling people that they were eligible for the first offender. And so what has happened is that we have this retroactive first offender now. And as the retroactive first offender, you can take your first felony conviction, and if it meets certain qualification, obviously if it's murder or what we consider the 7 deadly, armed robbery and the sex crime, you can't get that restricted. But let's say you committed a burglary, you've done your time, you never pled guilty to any other felony before that, you can get a retroactive first offender, which means I can go back, give you first offender, and seal and restrict that case all in one document. You don't go back on probation. You don't have to report. If you're eligible, I just do a retroactive first offender seal order presented to the court, and then you get the benefits, and then you can get the case restricted.
So I want to go rewind it for a second. You said the 7 crimes that cannot, so those crimes cannot be restricted ever. The murder and what are the 7, as a matter of fact, that the restriction won't work for?
It won't work, and those are cases that are typically not pardoned. So you have murder, you have armed robbery, you have your aggravated sexual child molestation, sexual battery, kidnapping. And so those are what we call like the 7 deadlies. And if you're convicted of those, with the exception of armed robbery, it's an automatic life sentence. And in Georgia, life is considered, you're not eligible for parole for 30 years. Robbery is considered a 7 deadly, and it has a sentencing range of 10 to 20 to life, which means if you get that 10, you have to serve every single day. And so those are what Georgia would consider our serious crimes, serious violent crimes. When you think of the sex charges, you think of murder, and you think of armed robbery. Those are considered those heinous crimes that carry maximum sentence. So those you cannot get first offender on, and those you cannot get pardoned on.
Not even the armed robbery. Even if they do the 10 years, if let's say they got 10 or whatever, they can. Okay, all right.
Yeah, no.
Listen, y'all better pay attention out here, because y'all thinking this like, yeah. Now let me ask you this, because this happens a lot. We know this happened a lot. 16 years old, armed robbery. Now they're 26. They've been rehabilitated. Still no.
So the thing about, and I want the young people to please hear me when I say this, in Georgia, with the 7 deadlies, you can be convicted at 13. The only difference is it's armed robbery. When it comes to an armed robbery, if you and I go somewhere and we rob somebody with a knife, that's an armed robbery. As a juvenile, if they rob somebody with an actual gun, then they're considered armed robbery for an adult under that Senate Bill 440, and they will be treated as an adult. Now, if they rob somebody with a baseball bat, that's different. That you can still have that juvenile, but with a gun, then you can be treated as an adult. And actually, the law just changed to include that if a juvenile commits a crime with a gun, an aggravated assault with a gun, they can be treated as an adult now. Now, that still has some wiggle room, but with armed robbery, that conviction is 10 years is the minimum, and it is what we call a hard 10 years. You probably, I've seen it happen. You probably do from 13 to 18 or 13 to 17 in a juvenile facility. Then you'll spend the rest of that time in an adult facility. And unfortunately, an armed robbery conviction will follow you.
Wow. Ooh, that sounds so scary. You prosecuted some real tough cases, like you had violent crimes, drug trafficking, illegal firearms. From that experience, what patterns do you see that Gwinnett residents should be able to actually identify, so they can know how things happen in their communities? Because we kind of walk willy-nilly. We don't think about stuff. We don't pay attention to stuff. Everybody's on their phone, and we set ourselves up a lot of times for the things that happen to us. We don't want to say that, but it's the truth, because we're not paying attention. So what do you say to that?
So I say for our Gwinnet and anybody that's listening, we have to be as potential victims alert. You have to clean your car out. And I'm notoriously bad for that, but you have to clean your car out. Utilize your trunk. Don't leave any items of value in your
Oh
car.
yeah.
I had a colleague who left clothes, loose clothes, and his car was broken into. So don't leave any loose items in your car. Keep it in your trunk. Uh, Again, I'm guilty of this, walking around on my phone, texting and calling people. No, be alert. Be alert because somebody could see you with a nice bag or nice shoes or a nice something, and you're not paying attention, and they can run up on you, snatch it, and run. So we have to be alert. Be safe on the internet. Don't give your information out on the internet. Don't go to questionable sites. Obviously, we also handle those types of crimes where people's identity have been stolen. So my thing is be alert. Try to, when you go out Christmas shopping, I know next week is Black Friday and people are going to go out Christmas shopping. I have had cases, unfortunately, here in Gwinnett where a group of people went to Best Buy and they were followed home by someone. And once they got into their garage and they left the garage door open, they were robbed of their items from their garage. So another thing I tell people, now I'm good at this. When I get into my garage, I do not turn my car off or put it in gear until my garage door closed down. So be mindful of that when you're doing this Christmas shopping. Be mindful of that when you're doing Amazon and you have these things delivered. Get these things off your porch or have someone get these things off your porch as soon as possible. But if
Yeah.
you are unfortunately a victim of a crime, please call 911 and get them involved immediately.
Yeah. Now I'm very paranoid. So I'm looking at I got mace on my thing. I got a stun gun in my car. I'm very paranoid. So when I go outside the house in the morning, I peep out the door. I'm just very paranoid, which is not a good thing. Well, I guess it's a good thing, but I don't know. So your office in Fulton County is nationally known for like high profile cases. Of course, right now they're still doing the investigation for Donald Trump. And it's a lot that goes on. So without discussing the specifics of what happens, what is it that the public does not see about that pressure? Because I feel like that's a pressure cooker. Like I can see me pulling out all strings of my hair, um, in spaces like that. But you guys do it so well. We watched Funny do her thing, and I told you when I met you. When I saw her lean to the side like this, I was like, "Oh, it's on and popping right now." But what is it that the public don't see about the pressure and the integrity and the decision making that goes into all of that and running the office with such high profile like that?
So my DA, Ms. Willis is what you see on TV. I have known her for over 20 years. She has always been a fighter for truth and justice. And she puts herself out there, risking her life and her safety to make sure that justice is served, make sure that the law is being followed, and those who don't follow it, that they are prosecuted. And so I commend her, and I ask everyone to please continue to lift her up in prayers. I do supervise a second call desk in my office, and I have my ladies who answer the rollover phone calls, and we hear the threats, we hear the nasty comments, and we get a lot of it, a lot of threats. I don't understand. Like we can disagree, but we don't have to be threatening and disrespectful. And so the way Miss Willis is able to hold her head up high and still go out in these streets and fight for what's right is commendable. Because we get a lot of nasty phone calls, even to this day, unfortunately.
I was in a meeting one time with someone who works for a DA office, and all of them were going to be in one place at one time. All of the DAs in Georgia. And he was like, it's going to be a 5-day sweep of the area. I was like, why? He said, because they're all going to be in one place. And he was like, you have to make sure that area is secure. So they were going to do a 5-day sweep. I thought, wow, that was pretty interesting. It's so crazy because that's the other thing. That's one of the reasons I did not go into politics, because I see how hard people work and I see how much they get their backs kicked in. No matter how good it's always somebody kicking their back into something, and they're sacrificing a lot to be in that position. And I was like, yeah, I'll probably be terrible in that position because I'll be ready to fight somebody. So they probably had me on TikTok somewhere doing something nuts because somebody done said something crazy. Um,
But you know, it
So
is
you work with,
it
huh?
is
Go ahead.
it is a difficult job, and
Yeah,
we're putting our lives out there, but
yeah,
there are some beautiful stories that have come out of cases I have tried. There are beautiful
yeah.
stories of victims now becoming survivors. There's even beautiful stories of some defendants that I have prosecuted that were able to go get a GED, go better themselves, get a better job. And then I've had some come to me, and not a lot, but I have had some that says, thank you. I was on the road of destruction, and you showed mercy when it was time to prosecute my case. And because of that, I've gotten my jobs, I've gotten my degrees, I've gotten steady housing, I'm taking care of my family. So, and then it's those joys that brings us some peace within. When you have that victim of that child victim that you see grow up and go on and become an attorney, or go on and become, bigger and better. Those are the stories that say, you know what, those threats, it's okay. It's okay. It's not that bad, because I can see that things that we're doing as prosecutors and how it's making the world a better place.
Well, that's kudos to you guys. I applaud you for like the work that you do, because I get it. It's rough. Um, so you working, you're an attorney. You've been in law enforcement for over 20 years. Now you want to be a judge.
Yes.
Tell me why? Because you seem like you work in an office that's very high profile with a lot going on. I can imagine if you're in this kind of like me in my space, like this is my space. So I'm excited when I'm in my space with my people. Um, why judge? Why now?
So I have wanted to be a judge since eighth grade. And I wanted to be a prosecutor and a judge since eighth grade. And people go, what? There were some, issues that, in my house of domestic violence at the hands of my dad. And I remember just thinking, this just can't be how life is supposed to be. And my mother was a praying mother, and thank God all three of us are doing well in life. I have a sister who's in IT and doing very well. She has a comic book script. I have a brother who is a really good father and a retired Army captain. And then we've done well, because of the prayers of my mother. But I remember I went to eighth grade and I took these civics class by this teacher, Mr. Epperson. And he was talking about how bills become a law. And so I was like, oh, okay, I never thought about that. Then he took us to the courthouse for a field trip where I met at that time a Black female judge. Now, my father was in and out the criminal system all the time. Every time we went to court, white male prosecutor, white male defense attorney, white male judge. So in Birmingham, I thought that's how life is. And I met this woman and it blew my mind. And I told her my story. And she was telling me how to take what happened to me and become a prosecutor, and to put the bad people away when you get an adult and make it better. Okay, cool. That's what I'm going to do. Then there was a time when we had a case as a family, and I didn't believe when I went in there that the judge listened. I didn't believe that the judge cared. I believe he just like, next, keep it moving. And then that impacted me because I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel respected. So then I said, okay, all right, I'm gonna be a prosecutor for a period of time, learn the law, get my feet wet, and then I'm gonna become a judge. And I'm gonna be a better judge to my people than what was for me. And people go, well, that was eighth grade. You're 200 years old now. It still fuels me. It still fuels me because I believe that if that judge had listened to me, I don't know, maybe I could have been a teacher, maybe I could have been, I don't know, a rocket scientist or worked for the phone company. My life was shifted this way because he ignored me and I didn't matter. So the thing that I'm harping on, in addition to following the law, being fair, without fear or favor, is I want to make sure people are heard and respected. Now, you may come in there and you may say, Judge, I want A, and I may rule against you. But I want you to say, you know what, she ruled against me. I hate that. But the one thing I can say is she listened. She treated me with respect, and she gave me an opportunity to speak. And that still fuels me. When I'm a prosecutor and I'm going into the courtroom and I'm seeing some of the things that are happening, I think to myself, I could do that. I can do that better. I can do that. I can do that better. And I want that opportunity. I think all the years and all the cases, I know the law. I have a love for it, and I want to give back. And I want to give back to that little girl back in 8th grade who was discarded.
I love that what you said. You said I saw representation. That's what I heard you say. You said I saw representation. How important is that right now? Like we have people who want to be influencers and they want to be on YouTube and they want to be TikTok stars. And I don't know how many young ladies or people of color are signing up to be attorneys right now, but how important is it right now for them to still see that type of representation to help them make really informed decisions about how life is going to be moving forward?
I think it's critical. I think that it's critical that the young people that they want to be influencers and all that, that you see this as an opportunity to make the world better than how you found it. So you can be that influencer, you can be that attorney or that judge or that nurse or that doctor or that teacher or the mailman. You could be that person, but make the world better than how you found it. Interact with people, help people, share with people. That's needed. Like, don't leave people out here to suffer. So everything that you have gone through when you decided you want to be this influencer and you become that, give back. Help someone else. Help someone pay it forward. So
Yeah.
and it's important. And I think that as we live in this society where it's still a big deal to have your first black woman, first black man, if we're going to put ourselves out there and hold ourselves out there to the public as such, we need to demonstrate how education, living a good life, helping people, caring, loving your humanity, loving your neighbor, how that is important and how that can help make other people's lives better, how that can help, in fact, make the world better. And that's something that I believe in.
Gwinnett is one of the most diverse counties in the country. We have a melting pot of people here. It's a beautiful county to live in, and so we see what's going on around the world. Thank God it's not happening here. I mean, it happened a little bit, but it was so small that it flew up under the radar of the news. We see what's happening. What do people need to know about their rights when they're approached by law enforcement, or they're not sure it's a law enforcement, or they get a summons and things like that? Because I feel like there are just a lot of things that's happening, and a lot of people don't know how to react. They don't know what they should be doing. They think they know their rights, but right now it's almost like, do we have rights? Almost, you know what I'm saying? Because of all of the stuff that's going on. So prayerfully, it does not hit our community and it stop hitting other communities at the same time. And this show is global. It's all the way from here to Vietnam, which is one of my top listening audience, which is the weirdest thing. But what should they know about their rights, and what should they know about how to handle a summons when they do get one?
Perfect question. And it's funny you asked because that happened a few months ago with my mom. My mom lives in Birmingham and she received what appeared to be a federal jury summons. And so it looked extremely suspicious. And so my mother called me and she said, "Hey, can you check this out?" And so if you get a summons in the mail, you don't know if it's valid or not, contact that agency. So I contacted the federal courts down in Birmingham and I said, "Hey, can I send you this and can you verify it?" And so they were able to say yes, even though it didn't look like the summons that they put online. They said, if you get a summons, you should look like this. It didn't look like that, but we called and they were like, yes, this is a real summons. So if you get a summons and you don't know if it's real, before that date, please, before the date on the summons, reach out to that agency. So if it's Gwinnett County, you got it for Gwinnett County, contact the clerk's office. If it's a jury summons, contact the jury summons people. Say, "Hey, did you all send me this?" And you want to do it before that date, because if it's real, then and you miss it, you could be subject to an arrest. When it comes to encountering police, and I just did a session for the young people in October at my church, I tell them this: when you're pulled over by the police officer, cooperate. Don't sit up there and I know the law and you ain't got the right. No, cooperate. Even if that law enforcement officer is wrong, get their names, get their badge numbers, and cooperate. The time to argue whether the stop is right or wrong, whether the questioning is fair or not, is not during that stop. You're not going to win your case during that stop. Cooperate. If it ends up with a ticket, if it ends up in an arrest, There is a day for you in court. You are entitled to your day in court. And that's when you make those arguments. But don't argue with the police on the side of the road. That's just not the right place to do it. Police can stop you, and it's just not that time. Why'd you stop me? That's not fair. No, get your ticket, call an attorney, have your day in court. The thing is, I tell particularly my young Black brothers and sisters, I need you to come home at the end of that stop. So don't escalate it with attitudes and questions. Take the ticket, come home. Let's talk about it as a family. Let's get you an attorney and let's have our day in court.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like my nephew is a college football coach at the University of Charlotte, and when I saw Charlotte on the news this weekend, I went into instant panic, because he's a young Black man, and I was like, oh Lord, but I was like, I'm not going because I'm the alertist in the family, so I call about I'm everything. I'm the prepper. I'm the all of the people that everybody else is like, we're not paying that stuff any attention. So we're about out of time, but I got one last question. If you could teach every Gwinnett, as every resident in Gwinnett, one thing about how the justice system works, like truly works, not the stuff they see on Law, was it Law and Order and SUV and all that kind of stuff, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good question because it's
Mhm.
uh I would say, that's a good question. I would have to go back to the record restriction to understand how that works. Understand that if you're in front of a court and you're getting ready to plead, if you're eligible for first offender, take it and do everything you're supposed to do. If you believe that your rights were violated, challenge it, file a motion, and go before a court and argue why you believe your rights were violated. Um,
Mhm.
and don't forget that it's just very, very important that if you have a child and you're outside of wedlock, men, you got to legitimize that child if you want to become the legal father, not just the biological father, if you also want to become the legal father. And that's what I go back to that.
Yeah, that's important. All right, so why should people vote for you? Because I know, I'm probably going to speak to some other folks and I'm going to ask some pretty similar questions, if not different ones. Um, and, you know, if you are elected, what does that look like for you and the community?
So people should vote for me because number one, I have tried everything but the death penalty case. I've done all kinds of cases, all kinds of hearings, all kinds of trials, and I am very knowledgeable on different areas of the law. I also have, like I stated earlier, experiences with child support. I have a love for the law, a deep understanding, and again, I'm going to follow it without fear or favor. I think with all the experience I've had working with the public, working with victims, working with officers, working with other agencies, I know how to work well with others. And that's something that's important. And I want people to understand that, you know, I'm here to serve the public. This is not my seat, my job. I'm here to serve the public. And serving the public is something my mother instilled in us as a kid. I'm out, I've always been out in the public. I've always been trying to make the world a better place. My family, we do a college scholarship every year. We go out and we give out. Every year we've gone out either on Thanksgiving and Christmas, either here in Georgia, Birmingham, or Maryland, and we give back out through the holiday season. So I am a community service oriented person. So I believe Gwinnet wants somebody who knows the law, who practices the law, who's going to follow the law, who cares about the community, who has demonstrated a care for the community, not just now during this election, who has years and years and years and years of history of pouring back in the community and caring for the community. And I think that's what Gwinnet needs. And I know that that's what I bring. And if I get the
Yeah.
opportunity to be that judge, they'll get an opportunity to see that.
It's so funny. You said something that stuck out in my head. You said respect earlier, and I had to. It was so funny because I said I don't know when I was in a courtroom last. I think the very, very last time I was in a courtroom was with my niece. So my niece graduated from Georgia Southern. So she would come home and she would be flying. So she's speeding, right? So she got a super ticket. I was like, what is a super ticket? Which means she was driving really fast in Jefferson County. So we had to go to Jefferson County and go to court. And the judge was hilarious. Like I had never, He was so funny. And so when it was time for her to go up to him, right, I couldn't see her face. She walked up and I could just see the judge laughing. But he was hilarious through the whole, like everybody that came before him. He was just like, it was like night court. You remember night court?
Yeah.
Like that's how it was. Like everybody went up. Like one guy had like 5 tickets. He'd been caught with weed. He was dropping 105, all kinds of stuff. And I'm thinking he's going to prison for sure. But he didn't. So when I saw he didn't get in trouble, I said to my niece, "You're gonna be fine." He didn't do nothing to that guy right there. Sure enough, when she got up there, her back was to me and she was facing him, and I just see him just bust out and start laughing. I didn't know why he was laughing. He couldn't contain himself. So he said he made her write a paper. That was her sentence. She had to write a paper and pay, I think, like $50 or something. She was so nervous. And I said to her, "Did you see all these people that just went before you? Nothing's gonna happen." When she stepped out that door, like I'm literally 1 foot over the threshold from the court, she just bust out and started crying. And I was like, "Oh my God!" But he was hilarious. So, what I thought at that moment, I said he has a very serious job, but he listened to the people. He listened to what they had to say. He was very lenient because I was like, some of the people should have went to jail. And I think out of all of the people, one person went to jail. So you said respect, and that stuck out of my head. So how can people reach out to you?
They can reach out to me. They can go through my website, which is tooleforjudge.com. And that's TOOLEFOR judge.com. I need volunteers. I need people who are willing to put a yard sign in their yard in 2026. I need donations. I need speaking opportunities. I need prayers. I need encouragement. And so they can reach out to me through that website, and it comes to my email and I check it out. But, I need the community support. I honestly, sincerely believe that I have a lot of knowledge, compassion, and love for Gwinnett County, and that I can make this bench work. I can make this bench better. I can move these cases in a judicial way, make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to come in front of the court when facts and evidence is fresh, and resolve it in a matter where not both sides win, but both sides feel like, hey, I did have an opportunity to present my facts in my case. I did feel respected, and I'm okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for coming on the show and spending some time. I know you got to hit the ground running, but
Yes.
I want to thank you again for taking some time to share with my audience and with our community about what you do, why it's important, how it affects them, and why they should vote for you. So thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to your people who are watching this show. I really appreciate anything that I can receive as I go through this journey.
Okay, thank you. All right, guys, I have to go, but I hope you enjoyed that episode. I hope you got a lot out of the episode. I hope you learned a lot about the judicial system, especially here in Gwinnett County. If you did not, go back and rewatch the video and share it with somebody. Somebody right now needs record restriction. They're trying to get their life back on track. They need to figure out how to do that. Let them listen to this episode. Let them reach out to Ramona so she can share what she does and how she can support and help them. All right. So I'll be back. I got another show in 2 weeks. I'll be back with another great guest. You're going to like this one as well. And listen, you guys stay safe out there. And until next time, my friends, make it a great day. Bye, everybody.
You've been watching or listening to the Good Morning Gwinnet Show, hosted by Audrey Bell-Kearney, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to the show today and share it with your friends by going to www.goodmorninggwinnett.com.